right, let's go ahead and get our Bible class started. If you would, go ahead and be opening to John chapter 3. We're going to take a few minutes today, and as I said, I'm trying to be conscious of topics and time while we're all out here together, and I want to do that again today. But I wanted to say some things from the first 5 verses here about what the Bible has to say about being born again. Looking at this, I may have put down way too much information, but I will try to be time conscious. The first 5 verses, there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. A man came to Jesus by night and said to him, Rabbi, we know that you're a teacher come from God, for no one can do the signs you do unless God is with him. Jesus answered and said to him, Most assuredly I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. Nicodemus said to him, How can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born? Jesus answered, Most assuredly I say to you, unless one is born of water and spirit, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. There are some major changes and transitions and life experiences that we go through that we would consider to be major. And there are minor ones along the way, but there are some things that are stages in life that we experience that are major. The first day of school, that's going to be a major episode for somebody who thinks that the entire universe revolves around them up until this point. And then they're one of 20 in a classroom. It's not going to be what it was. But some big old life changes are fixing to take place over here. Maybe somebody starts college and they recognize this is a whole different world and all of the changes that go with that. Someone begins a job or someone gets married and all of the adjustments that go with that, or the decision to buy a house, or the decision to have children, and all of these different things that we go through in life that are major transitions. I thought in looking at this, I thought about some with myself, and I thought about my first day of school. What I can vaguely remember about going way back when, my brother is, I think he's 4.5 years my younger. And so I was in that situation where everybody thought I was the best. Everything revolved around me, and all the attention was on me. And that changed very quickly. I realized that there was 20 others who thought the same thing that I did. And we got thrown, and I thought about the adjustments for that. I thought about going to high school and realizing very quickly in my first classes in high school in my freshman year, playtime is over. These people are serious. They're expecting me to study now. It's not just going to happen. And I thought about going to college and realizing I had no idea the level of study that I was going to have to do. And now it's really serious. And for a while there, living on a pretty good diet of Dr. Pepper and Mountain Dew to keep me awake at night so that I could get my studying done. Maybe somebody looks at marriage and one of the most important decisions of your life, and usually accompanied about the same time with a decision on a house and a career, and then children come along, and I remember how it hit me, the idea that with my first one, and Sydney was born, I'd heard it talked about, and people told me everything's going to change, but until it happens, and you realize and look at this person, I'm responsible for molding a mind and a soul. Bobby Odell is responsible for putting together and molding a mind and a soul. You think I'm immature now? You should have seen me 18, 19 years ago when that realization hit me. That's a scary thought, but settle down, all right? But there are those things in life that hit us that hopefully cause some change along the way. And I've told you before, I think I'm somewhere closer to a grandparent with this last one because none of my others would have been able to sleep with caramel corn popcorn in their bed. But some reason he's allowed to, all right? But there are major adjustments and major changes along the way. The most important one that I will ever experience, that you will ever experience, is the one that we just read about in John chapter 3. Being born again. Being spiritually born again. Of water and of the Spirit, teachings of the Spirit, the waters of baptism are accompanying a decision that you have made. I want to give my life to Christ. I want to become a Christian. The biggest life-altering change that a person will ever experience And we need to see it that way. I was talking with a young person, an adolescent, not too long ago, contemplating some of these ideas and whether or not this individual was ready or not. And on their own, they came to the conclusion that is a pretty mature decision, and I'm not a very mature person yet, just not ready. Well, I think that is actually a pretty mature realization in and of itself, to recognize I know other people around me might be, but that's not yet where I am. And I want someone to recognize that. This is a big deal. This is a big decision. What changes would you expect to see? And think about that for a moment. A person is going to go, I listed all those other things, and I experienced a change in me not being the center of the universe like I thought I was. I experienced a change in study habits. I experienced a change in dedication. I experienced all these changes with these different life situations. But when a person makes the most important decision to become a Christian, what kind of changes should they be expected to experience? What goes on that list? They might what? What's different? What changes when you become a Christian? What do you think, guys? Everything, in that I might be involved in a lot of the same things, family, work, paying bills, whatever it is, but now everything revolves around Him. Maybe before it all revolved around me and I was involved in those activities. Or maybe before it all revolved around the hub of worldliness or materialism, and everything progressed off of that. The hub has changed. The focus, the core has changed. Now it's Christ. Now it's glorification to God, and everything changes off of that. That's why sometimes a person becomes a Christian, and you can see a change in their parenting. Or someone becomes a Christian, and they begin to shape up as a spouse. Or someone becomes a Christian, and they are now a much, much better employee or a better student. Because everything changes. Because the center around which everything revolves, that has changed. And when that changes, everything changes. Colossians 1, 12 through 14, I serve a new master now, going by a different set of rules. There are sports that I have been to that are frustrating me because I don't know the sport. I love sports. I've spent a lot of time around certain ones, as you know, but I had some friends that wanted to take me to a Nashville Predators hockey game. And I went, this will be fun. I realized very quickly I have no idea what's going on. They're calling penalties or fouls. I don't know what it is in that. It's like the person watching a basketball game and says, wow, they scored a touchdown. You know, I kind of felt like that person. I didn't know the rules. I didn't understand them. Okay, I had no clue. Well, you understand that just one set of rules and terminology and all of those things don't translate to every sport. Well, whatever rules I was under before, they don't translate anymore to becoming a Christian. I'm under a new set of rules, and I need to figure out what they are. That's why we allow people to grow in becoming a Christian, and we expect a growing process, because it doesn't happen overnight. Their understanding develops. Their discernment begins to grow, and to become more accustomed with what they should or shouldn't do, and why, and how they figure all of those things out. We're patient with people when we recognize that they're babes in Christ. I start a new life. Romans 6:6 pictures for us that change that needs to happen, that change that we promise to make. I mentioned a moment ago my little brother who's younger than me, and thankfully everything worked out. Great guy, gospel preacher over in Arkansas right now somewhere. But that's not the way that we saw it progressing when he was younger. Every day that boy brought home a detention slip. Now, in the elementary school that I went to is a little blue piece of paper, a little square piece of paper. What do y'all do now? Detentions back then, Dusty, they were serious business. They don't. All right, so we get this little piece of blue paper. Mom and Dad had to sign it. First couple of times he decided he could sign their signature. That didn't work out well for him. And so he would bring the thing in, present it. It was almost always just for talking. He just couldn't keep his mouth shut. Just talking. Get attention, had to stay after school, which meant Mom or Dad had to make a second trip back to the building, which it's not going to be pleasant for anybody now. And I can remember every time he would walk in the front door, not even say anything, hand the detention slip, and go back to where the discipline would be administered. We knew the drill, all right? And it seemed like every day. And every day it was the same thing. This is the last time. It will not happen again. I promise, all right? Listen, we have made a promise here, and some changes have got to be made, and we've got to take that serious. It can't be the same old thing every time. And I'm not saying we won't make mistakes, and we will. I know that we will. But there has to be a growing process, and there has to be some adjustments. The old man, according to Romans 6:6, has been crucified, put to death, executed. And if somebody is executed, I don't expect to see them up and walking around the next day. Something went wrong, okay? And if I have executed that old man, then I need to make sure that same guy is up and just walking around. And 2 Corinthians 5:17. Let's go ahead and read that one actually. Somebody get it for me. 2 Corinthians 5:17. All right. There were you can categorize them a lot of ways. Appetites, passions, desires, priorities, whatever they were. Any of them that wasn't lining up, those are no longer my appetites, passions, desires, priorities, whatever they might be. Those things have changed. They've been put to death. And the picture here is of a burial. I've died to the old man and I've become a new creature. And you've seen that illustration of the kind of the outline of a baptistry, and there's the idea of a cross and a burial and a resurrection when you come out the other side. Well, that's according to the first beginning of Romans 6, that's what I need to experience at my conversion when I'm born again. I'm dead in sin. I'm buried with Christ in the waters of baptism, and I'm risen to walk in newness of life according to this. And so I don't want to see that same one up and walking around again. I've got to be willing to forsake all for Christ. That's something that we can break down here in a lot of ways. I put down 5 different things. And I have another page of material, but I think I'll end with these 5 things as far as time that we have. 5 verses, if y'all will help me and try to turn to some of these different ones and we can be ready to roll. I need somebody in Matthew 12:30. Somebody can be turning there. Matthew 12 and verse 30. Somebody else, Hebrews 12, the first 2 verses. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. Someone else, 2 Timothy 2:4. Who's got that one for me? 2 Timothy 2:4. Mr. Billy's going to get that one in a minute. Matthew 10:37. Somebody else will go there. And then the last one, 1 John 2, 15 through 17. 5 different ways that this can be demonstrated. Number 1, it is demonstrated in that there is no middle ground when it comes to this decision that you make. When it comes to the idea of being born again. No middle ground. Matthew 12:30. Somebody read it for me, please.
He who is with me is against me, and he who does not gather with me scatters abroad.
In growing up in Ohio, or if you're to the state to the north of Ohio that people from Ohio are not allowed to say, you got to pick a team. And there's no both ways. There's no such thing as, I kind of like the Wolverines and the Buckeyes. There's a decision to make. And I found out when I moved to Alabama, that's not a decision that's limited to where I grew up. I got to a congregation that was my first work right out of school, and in Alabama, kind of in the middle, between a place called Auburn and a place called Birmingham, kind of Tuscaloosa area, somewhere right in the middle. And the members, the elders, all of them, they came to me and they said, which one are you going to pick? And I was like, well, I mean, I'm already a Ohio State fan. I enjoy watching football. I'm not going to pick. And they just looked at me like I'd said the craziest thing in the world. Now, even if it's your second favorite, you choose now. And I was like, all right, I really don't care, but I like Auburn's colors better. I'll go with them. Half the congregation didn't speak to me for a couple of weeks. All right, you got to decide. There is no middle ground on any of that. Well, we recognize it, and there's some silliness with it when it comes to things like that. But we've got too many people who have one foot in the world and one foot in the church, and they think that it's okay to to compromise their belief system, to compromise what they think about Christ, to compromise what they think about the Bible, to compromise in any of these areas, their convictions, their beliefs, their activities. There is no middle ground. You're all in or you're not. You either gather with me or you scatter abroad, is what he says. And so we pick, there's no middle ground. Number two, you got to lay aside, if you're going to be born again, anything that'll slow you down. Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. Who got that one for me? Nobody? Who got it?
Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which is so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God.
Let us lay aside every weight. And what does he describe that weight that we're laying aside as? He calls it sin. There are things that weigh us down and hold us back. And for every person in this room, there is something that especially will pull at you. You know better than anybody else what it is. I know what mine are. I know the things that pull at me, and if I were to allow them, they would pull me right back into the world. And it's a struggle. You know what yours are, right? Van, you know what yours are? Marty, you know what yours are? I know what mine are. You know what yours are. We know them about ourselves better than anybody else. Me and God know exactly what those are. When I'm born again, I make a determination, I make a decision that I'm going to be involved in a struggle with those things, whatever they were. Before, I just let them have their way with me. And now I'm battling against them. I'm not always successful. And sometimes I get to the end of the day and I know what those things are, and I have to say, I didn't lay them aside very well today, did I? But I want to do better tomorrow. Maybe as the new year approaches, that can be an opportunity for me to look at those things and say, I don't want that anymore. I want to do better with that. That is all a part of this process of being born again. Laying aside the things that weigh me down and snare me that he calls as being actual sins. Number three, be careful about not getting too wrapped up in this life. I told you I've got 5 of these. 3 more. Number 3, don't get wrapped up in this life. 2 Timothy 2:4. Actually, go ahead and read verses 3 and 4. 2 Timothy 2, verses 3 and 4. All right, the illustration there, and Paul is amazing at the illustrations that he uses as far as things with which people are readily familiar. Sometimes, and I think actually in the next couple of verses, it's athletics. And he used sports to illustrate a spiritual point. Well, here he uses warfare. And he talks about a soldier. And the kind of soldier that he's picturing here is an encamped soldier. We're not talking about a modern day situation of somebody who's in the National Guard and kind of a weekend warrior thing where they have a weekend responsibility and through the week that is not what they had available to them. When you were involved in warfare in the first century times, for instance, the Roman Empire, your family didn't see you for a few months or years. Sometimes years as you went off to battle whatever it was for the empire. You were wholly invested in the cause of warfare and being a soldier. There was no moonlighting of, I'll be a soldier and then I've got this side gig on the way that I'm doing and, I'm going to kind of do that too. There was no side gig. It was this and nothing but this. And he says that needs to be a comparison to our allegiance when it comes to Christ. There is no side gig of allegiance when it comes to something else besides Jesus. It's Him and total dedication to Him. And we need to be careful to make sure that we don't get too wrapped up in this life. That's how you can tell if it's genuine, if it's real, or if it's just a hobby with somebody. Is by looking at when it really meets the road, where are they? Is it genuine, or was it just pretend? Is it genuine, or was it a hobby? Two more. Got to have your priorities right. Matthew 10:37. Somebody read that one for me. To experience the new birth, being born again, got to have your priorities right.
He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me.
Is that teaching you can't love your parents? No. What is it teaching then? Don't love them more than me. Just like the Bible doesn't say it's sin to have money, what's the problem with money? Love of money, dedication. Got to have my priorities right. Listen, he mentions mom and dad here. I love my mom and dad. They're probably, Mama will probably be tuning in to this at some point today. And just, jokingly, best lights of the holiday season, the tail lights of your family as they head down the road after they leave your house. Sound all right, Mr. Mike? All right. Well, we enjoyed them actually being there. We had a lot of fun this year, and they behaved themselves. We had a really good time. When I think about this idea, I love my mom and my dad, but I love my soul more than I love my mom and my dad. I love my soul more. I trust them. I trust them for advice. I can call my dad for some judgment, and I trust him for judgment. I trust no one with my soul. It's not up to my parents. My parents can be wrong. As much as I love them, and as usually as they're often right, they can be wrong, and my soul's too important to trust to anybody. And I'm not going to have a divided allegiance, or my priority is not where they ought to be. The question is, what do I love? I got to love my soul, and I got to love my God enough to trust it to Him only and only to His Word. That's a part of being born again. A change happens. When a person's married, we recognize that a transition has taken place. Leave and cleave. Leave mother and father and cleave to your spouse. One parent had a child who was being married, and in a symbolic representation of that, took a plate that they had bought for them, snapped it over his leg, gave half and kept half, and said that represents what just happened when you got married. This is not your home anymore. We love you, we'll support you, we'll help you, we'll encourage you, but now that's your home. That's been broken, and now you have been united with them. I need to make sure that whatever it was that I was tied to before I was born again, John 3, 1 through 5, that's been severed, and now I'm tied to Him and Him alone, Him first. Last one, be separate from the world. 1 John 2, 15 through 17. Whoever's got that. 1 John 2, 15 through 17.
Do not love the world or things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, it is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world is passing away, and the lust of it. But he who does the will of God abides forever.
All right. In the world, not of the world. Be separate from the world. By the way, that does not mean that you have to be weird, all right, unattractive to the community. Remember, the first century Christians, as genuine and as pure as that has ever been, the day of Pentecost, the Bible says that they had favor with how many people? All the people. People loved them. There's nothing wrong with you having a winsome personality and people in the community, even who aren't Christians, loving you. You don't have to be weird to be a Christian. But there are some things here that you're going to draw a line over and be balanced. You can be a normal, fun-loving, enjoyable, likable, winsome person and still be a Christian. In fact, I wish you would be, because we'll have a lot more success winning people over if they feel like they can identify with you. And so I look at this, the illustration that's been given before, boats in the water, everything's the way it ought to be. Water's in the boat, now we got problems. Christians in the world, that's the way it has to be. That's the way we want it. World's in the Christian, look out. And so we need to look at it, be separate from the world while we're in the world and influencing the world, and as much as possible to be peaceable with the world and to try to have that winsome personality that people want to be a part of. And that balance is one that we can achieve, that we must achieve. You must be born again. There's a lot involved in that. I extend an invitation every week, and I don't always take all of the time that might need to be taken to really explain what's involved in that. Well, there's a lot involved in that idea of being born again. And today, for Bible class hour, we've highlighted just a few of some of the things that might include. Who do we call on for closing us out? Mr. Darrell? Anything else anybody wants to share or anything like that? If not, we will stand and we will be dismissed.